morning, YouTube. I'm going to take the opportunity this morning to respond to Das American Atheist and his two questions that he posed quite a bit ago, but they're very unique and interesting, and I thought they'd be very applicable to answer. Now, before I do that, if you'd allow me a quick tangent and generalization. I've been active on YouTube now, making videos at least, for about a year, and I've come to discover that there seems to be two quote-unquote types of atheists. In the first group, you have the atheists who are more concerned about being right, and they have no problem ad homineming you all the way to oblivion. The second type, actually, is a little less more prevalent, and they are more concerned with finding out what is right, and they genuinely hold to their atheism. Now, the atheists of the second category, as I've said, are not as predominant as the first, and they would be exemplified like that German bastard, Conrad Livingston, Urban Elf, and Prof. MTH, perhaps, at least in my experience. Now, all this to say that atheists like this seem to be far and few between, and so when I find one, I kind of get a little happy inside, because they're enjoyable to discuss with. And thus, I think Das American Atheist is another one that I can put in this category. Now, I'll end the generalization tangent here and begin the topic of the video. James has asked two questions, namely 1, what is the critical point at which you would revise your position? And 2, assuming that Christianity is not true, what is it about Christianity specifically that makes you want it to be true? Now, I'll take each of these in turn, so please note that my answers are unique to me, and while they may be similar to other believers in what they think, they are not regurgitated statements by the whole of Christianity, but rather are genuine conclusions that I have slowly been coming to. In response to the first question, what is the critical point at which you would revise your position? I think it first important to explain a little as to why I hold Christianity to be true. Now, generally speaking, there are 5 reasons to which I believe Christianity to be true, and they are in order of importance with the addendum, that is, that my ranking of 2 and 3 are not so much certain. 1. The historical person and resurrection of Jesus Christ. 2. The historicity of the biblical narratives. 3. Personal experience. 4. The exclusive nature of truth. And 5. Philosophical argumentation. Now let's begin to hypothetically dismantle each of these 5 points in reverse order to see where the critical point lies, where I would need to revise my position. First, let's assume that every philosophical argument presented for God's existence is erroneous. The universe is not designed, but rather exists out of pure chance. The Leibnizian and Kalam cosmological arguments are non-descriptive of the universe. The ontological argument uses faulty logic, and the arguments from consciousness, ethics, reason, and the basicality of belief in God are all non-descriptive of human beings, or are false. Now, assuming that all of these hypothetical situations are true, then while I would lose a level of epistemological justification for my belief, I would still hold Christianity to be true due to the other 4 aforementioned points above. Now let's assume that the nature of truth, for whatever reason, is not exclusive. From this I would still hold to my faith, for while Christianity could no longer be said to be the only way to God, logically, and thus some of the main Christianity tenets become incorrect, one could still possibly infer, although inference is dependent on exclusive truth, so whether you could possibly infer or not, I don't know. But you could perhaps possibly infer that since Jesus was resurrected, that he has to be who he said he was. Yet, to be very honest here, again, I don't know what we really could infer about human rationality, logic, argument, or even simple problem solving if truth is not in fact exclusive. But I'd still hold to Christianity secondary to the 3 remaining points. However, my understanding of reality would change if truth were not exclusive, and I would need to rethink many other things. Third, let's hypothesize that the biblical narrative has a questionable historicity while simultaneously maintaining and demonstrating that my personal experience is erroneous and delusory. I think it would be here, in addition to the hypothesized falsity of the exclusive truth and philosophical argumentation, that I would come to a critical point where my belief would be weakened enough. However, the ability to remove one's personal experience is an event that I'm not sure is even possible. It could be possible, but the incorrigibility of personal experience seems to indicate otherwise. So concisely, if one were able to adequately 1. Deconstruct each philosophical argument for God's existence, 2. Demonstrate truth to be pluralistic, and 3. Show that the biblical narrative is not historical while simultaneously demonstrating my personal experience in life to be illusory, then I would have to come to not only rethink Christianity, but the whole of reality. Now we come to the second question. Assuming that Christianity is not true, what is it about Christianity specifically that makes you want to believe that it is true? It is first important to establish that I view religion as worldviews, and second, that I personally view religion and philosophy to ask some of the most important questions that pertain to humanity. Thus, assuming Christianity to be false on these assumptions, I would want it to be true, that is Christianity, given the assumption because of its description about the nature of truth, or anthropological state, wherein questions of purpose, peace, and ethical redemption lay, and the loss of the holy. First, according to Christianity, the nature of truth is rooted and founded in a being that is not only trustworthy, but is the epitaph and source of truth and goodness. Now, accordingly, this is the being that inscribes in his creations, i.e. humanity specifically, the very ability to think and be self-aware, and ultimately, the ability to find truth, and if one seeks it out, that is. Moreover, we could be sure that truth in fact exists, and what's more, matters. And ultimately, we could be sure that the problem that this being sees as a problem is given an answer, that being the reality of freely given ethical redemption, which as far as I can see, is not possible given any other worldview. Thus, concisely, truth is known to exist, and moreover, it matters, secondary to the nature of the Christian God. Second, according to Christianity, the nature of our humanity is convincing and desirable. Humankind has a unique purpose, that being to proclaim and become as close to Christ's example as possible. We can be redeemed from ethical transgressions, and we can find peace because peace is actually attainable. Thus, because Christianity projects a view of humanity that is extremely desirable and unique, this would be desirable for me. That is comparatively to other worldviews. For example, atheism would appear to lead to either nihilism or secular humanism, but there seems to be a lack of criteria to choose between the two. But regardless, neither seems to be able to construct a convincing or perhaps desirable view of humanity. If I were an agnostic, then I wouldn't be able to conclude anything about reality, as I would be continuously searching for answers. Likewise, deism, pantheism, and Hinduism seem to be either offer an irrelevant God, or else remove obvious truths about humanity, for example, the obvious real suffering and evil in the world, and thus would not be convincing. Likewise, Buddhism refuses the existence of the self, and so is non-descriptive of the self. Islam depicts a God far from being trustworthy, good, or gracious. Thus, humanity's relationship to truth and ethics are called into question via this view. Lastly, Judaism, while painting a more accurate view of humanity, would seem to offer an insurmountable condition for ethical redemption, i.e. living a perfect life as described by the Torah, and thus it is unlivable, which takes us full circle back to Christianity, wherein ethical redemption, purpose, and ultimately peace is given through Jesus Christ. This would be the second thing I would desire to be true. The first would be truth. Lastly, if Christianity were false, I would wish it to be true simply because without it, there would be a loss of the holy. In other words, there would be nothing worthy of sacred, moral, or consecrated veneration, with perhaps the exception of Judaism, that is. Such a statement, most likely, is an arguable point between the three major monotheistic religions. However, I believe that without the life and death of Jesus Christ, the nature of God, depicted by other religions, is at a loss to depict holiness. Thus, I would desire Christianity to be true concisely as it depicts 1. Truth, 2. Our anthropological state, and 3. Holiness. I'd like to thank James for asking these two questions. They've made me think, and I hope they're beneficial to you. Peace.